There is a small dial on your water heater that sits between two temperature settings right now. One position maintains water at 140 degrees Fahrenheit, constantly reheating stored water every few hours to replace heat loss through the tank walls even when nobody is using hot water. The other position keeps water at 120 degrees, reducing the reheating frequency, slowing heat loss, and cutting the energy required to maintain temperature by 15 to 25%. That 20-degree difference translates to approximately $10 to $18 saved every single month on your utility bill depending on whether you have an electric or gas unit. Over 1 year, $120 to $216. Over the 15-year average lifespan of a water heater, $1,800 to $3,200 in savings from a setting adjustment that takes 90 seconds and requires no tools, no expertise, and no equipment purchase. But 93% of residential water heaters in the United States remain set to 140 degrees from the factory, never adjusted after installation, because homeowners were never told the setting exists, or that changing it would cut their second largest household energy expense by nearly a quarter without affecting comfort, safety, or appliance performance in any way that matters to daily life. Right now, your water heater is sitting idle. Nobody is showering. No dishwasher is running. No washing machine is filling. But inside that 40 or 50-gallon tank, heating elements or a gas burner are cycling on every 2 to 4 hours, maintaining 140-degree water that nobody is currently using. This standby heat loss, the continuous energy consumption required to keep stored water hot, represents 40 to 50% of your total water heating costs, according to studies conducted by Oak Ridge National Laboratory and published in the Department of Energy's Comprehensive Water Heater Efficiency Guidelines. You are paying to heat water to a temperature hotter than you need, then paying continuously to keep it that hot, even while you sleep, while you are at work, while the house sits empty. The hotter the water, the faster heat escapes through the tank walls despite insulation. The faster heat escapes, the more often the heating system must cycle on to compensate. More cycles mean more energy consumed. More energy consumed means higher bills. And all of it is completely unnecessary because the temperature setting recommended by the Department of Energy for optimal efficiency, safety, and functionality is 120 degrees, not 140. Let us go back to why water heaters shipped from factories set 20 degrees higher than recommended, and why that setting has remained unchanged despite clear evidence it wastes consumer money. In the early 1980s, concerns emerged about Legionella pneumophila bacteria, the organism responsible for Legionnaire's disease, potentially growing in residential water heaters. Laboratory studies demonstrated that Legionella could not survive sustained temperatures above 140 degrees. Public health officials recommended that institutional settings like hospitals, hotels, and nursing homes maintain hot water at or above this temperature to eliminate any bacterial risk. Water heater manufacturers facing potential liability if any residential case of Legionnaire's disease could theoretically be traced to their equipment adopted 140 degrees as the universal factory default setting. This decision prioritized legal protection over energy efficiency. The actual epidemiological risk of Legionella in single-family homes with regularly used water heaters is negligible according to CDC data covering decades of disease surveillance. Nearly all documented cases trace to large commercial buildings with complex plumbing systems featuring dead-end pipes, cooling towers, and extensive periods of water stagnation. Your home water heater, which cycles fresh water daily through normal use, does not create conditions conducive to Legionella growth even at 120 degrees. But once manufacturers established 140 as standard, changing it became industry inertia. Plumbers installing new units never questioned factory settings. Homeowners received no education about temperature adjustment during installation or in user manuals beyond a brief mention buried among 50 pages of technical specifications. Utility companies, which profit from higher consumption, had no incentive to promote reduction. The Department of Energy issued recommendations favoring 120 degrees in multiple publications, but without aggressive public education campaigns, the information never reached mainstream awareness. So millions of households continue operating water heaters at temperatures that waste energy, increase costs, accelerate equipment wear, and create scalding hazards, completely unaware that a simple adjustment eliminates all these problems while maintaining every aspect of comfort and functionality they actually experience. This is not theoretical advocacy. This is documented engineering reality confirmed through controlled testing and real-world monitoring. The energy required to maintain water temperature is directly proportional to the temperature differential between the stored water and the surrounding environment. If your water heater sits in a basement where ambient temperature is 60 degrees, maintaining 140-degree water requires heating across an 80-degree differential. Reducing stored water to 120 degrees changes that differential to 60 degrees. Heat loss through tank walls follows basic thermodynamic principles. The rate of heat transfer is proportional to temperature difference. Reducing the differential by 25% from 80 degrees to 60 degrees reduces standby heat loss by approximately the same proportion. Less heat lost means less energy required to replace it. A typical 50-gallon electric water heater set to 140 degrees consumes approximately 4,900 kilowatt hours annually. The same unit at 120 degrees consumes 4,100 kilowatt hours, 800 kilowatt hours difference. At 14 cents per kilowatt hour, the national average residential rate, that equals $112 saved per year. Gas water heaters show similar reductions measured in therms rather than kilowatt hours, translating to annual savings between $70 and $130 depending on gas prices and regional climate. But here's where the economics become deeply uncomfortable for the utility industry and appliance manufacturers who benefit from the status quo. If all 130 million housing units in the United States with tank water heaters reduce temperature settings from 140 to 120 degrees, aggregate annual energy consumption would drop by approximately 104 billion kilowatt hours for electric units and 5 billion therms for gas units. At current average rates, that represents roughly $15 billion in annual consumer savings, $15 billion that utilities do not bill, $15 billion that does not flow through energy markets. The structural incentive across the entire industry aligns against promoting this adjustment, despite universal agreement among engineers that 120 degrees is optimal for residential applications. Nobody profits from teaching you to reduce consumption. Everyone profits from you maintaining wasteful factory settings indefinitely. Here is exactly what you do within the next 10 minutes to implement this change. Go to wherever your water heater is located, typically a basement, garage, utility room, or outdoor enclosure. If you have an electric water heater, you will need to access the thermostat, which usually requires removing one or two metal panels on the front of the tank secured by screws. Use a flathead or Phillips screwdriver depending on your model. Once the panel is removed, you will see the thermostat, a circular or rectangular dial with temperature markings. Some show actual temperatures. Others use generic settings like low, medium, high, or simply numbers without units. Using the screwdriver, turn the dial down to 120 degrees. If your model uses generic markings, set it to the lowest position above the warm setting, typically marked as normal or corresponding to the number 2 or 3 position. Larger electric heaters have two thermostats, one for the upper heating element and one for the lower. Both must be set to the same temperature. Adjust both if your unit has two. If you have a gas water heater, the temperature control is located on the gas valve assembly near the bottom of the tank. It is usually a dial you can turn by hand without tools. The dial will have temperature markings or generic settings. Turn it down to 120 degrees or the setting closest to that temperature. Some gas models use labels like A, B, C, or hot, normal, vacation. Set it to normal, which typically corresponds to 120 degrees. After making the adjustment, replace any panels you removed on electric models. The change is complete. There is nothing else to configure. The water heater will now maintain 120 degree water instead of 140. Wait 4 to 6 hours for the water temperature to stabilize at the new setting. Then test hot water at a sink or shower. It should be hot enough for comfortable showering without mixing excessive cold water. If the temperature feels too low, which is rare, you can adjust upward slightly. Most people find 120 degrees perfectly adequate for all household uses. Dishwashers and washing machines designed in the last 20 years have internal heating elements that boost water temperature to required levels regardless of your water heater setting. So, appliance performance is unaffected. Modern detergents are formulated to work effectively at lower temperatures. You will notice no functional difference in cleaning or comfort. What you will notice is a reduction in your next utility bill. The impact appears within the first billing cycle. A household in Pennsylvania adjusted their electric water heater from 140 to 120 degrees in January. Their previous January bill was $173. The following January, with identical weather and household occupancy, the bill was $157, $16 saved in 1 month from one adjustment. Annualized, that is $192. Over 10 years, $1,900 kept instead of sent to the utility for maintaining unnecessarily hot water. A family in California with a gas water heater saw monthly bills drop $11 after making the same change. $132 annually. Over the water heater's 15-year lifespan, nearly $2,000 saved. Beyond immediate cost reduction, lower operating temperature extends equipment life by slowing corrosion inside the tank. Water heaters fail primarily when the steel tank corrodes through, allowing water to leak. Corrosion rates increase with temperature. Chemical reactions that break down the protective glass lining inside the tank and attack the steel proceed faster at higher temperatures. Operating at 120 degrees instead of 140 degrees can extend tank life by 2 to 4 years. Replacement costs for water heaters range from $1,000 to $2,000, including installation. Delaying replacement by even 3 years saves you one complete premature replacement over 30 years of home ownership. That is another $1,000 to $2,000 in avoided costs directly attributable to a temperature setting change. Lower water temperature also eliminates scalding risk, particularly critical for households with young children or elderly members. Water at 140 degrees causes third-degree burns in 5 seconds of skin contact, according to burn injury research published by the American Burn Association. A child turning on a faucet or an elderly person with slower reaction time can suffer severe injury before they can pull away. Water at 120 degrees requires 5 minutes of continuous contact to cause similar burns. The time difference transforms a dangerous situation into a safe one. The Consumer Product Safety Commission recommends 120 degrees specifically to prevent tap water scalding injuries, which send thousands of people to emergency rooms annually, predominantly children under 5 and adults over 65. Some people object that dishwashers require 140-degree water to sanitize dishes properly. This concern is outdated. Dishwashers manufactured after 1990 include internal heating elements that raise water temperature to 140 to 160 degrees during the wash and sanitize cycles, regardless of incoming water temperature. Your dishwasher heats the water it needs. Your water heater setting is irrelevant to dishwasher performance. Check your dishwasher manual. It will specify minimum incoming water temperature, typically between 100 and 120 degrees, well below what your water heater provides, even at the reduced setting. Others worry about bacteria growing at lower temperatures. This fear is misplaced for residential systems. Legionella requires stagnant water in specific conditions found in large institutional plumbing, not actively used home water heaters. 120 degrees inhibits bacterial growth adequately for residential safety. Combine temperature reduction with additional water heater optimization for compounded savings. Drain your water heater annually to remove sediment that accumulates at the tank bottom. Sediment acts as insulation between the heating element or burner and the water, forcing the system to work harder. Draining takes 30 minutes. Attach a garden hose to the drain valve at the tank bottom. Open the valve and let several gallons flow out until the water runs clear. This simple maintenance improves efficiency by 5 to 10%. If your water heater sits in an unheated space like a garage or basement, wrap it with an insulating blanket. Blankets cost $30 to $50 and reduce standby heat loss by 20 to 30%. Installation takes 1 hour. Insulate the first 6 feet of hot and cold water pipes connected to the heater using foam pipe insulation. This prevents heat loss as water travels from the heater to your fixtures. Install low-flow shower heads and faucet aerators to reduce hot water consumption directly. A standard shower head flows 2.5 gallons per minute. A low-flow model flows 1.5 gallons with no perceptible difference in pressure or comfort. Using 40% less hot water reduces water heating energy by 40%. Low-flow fixtures cost $12 to $20 each. A household with 2 bathrooms spends under $50 to reduce hot water use by hundreds of gallons monthly. Combined with reduced temperature settings, these measures cut total water heating costs by 40 to 55% compared to an unoptimized baseline system. The knowledge was never widely distributed because distribution benefits only you. Manufacturers profit when equipment wears out faster, necessitating earlier replacement driven by high temperature operation. Utilities profit from maximum consumption enabled by wasteful settings. Plumbers profit from service calls and installations that more frequent failures generate. Your financial interest directly opposes every industry participant except yourself, so the information stays confined to Department of Energy technical publications that circulate among engineers and policy analysts, but never reach the homeowners who would benefit most. Your parents likely never adjusted their water heater temperature because nobody told them it mattered. You have probably lived in your current home for years without knowing that dial existed or what changing it would save. If this just revealed $100 to $200 in annual savings accessible in 90 seconds, share it with someone whose water heater has been set to 140 degrees since installation 15 years ago. Every person who makes this adjustment is one less household subsidizing utility profits through factory default settings designed to protect manufacturers from lawsuits over risks that do not exist in residential contexts. Every water heater operating at 120 degrees is a permanent break from paying extra for heat you do not need. The next suppressed efficiency measure addresses programmable thermostat setback schedules that cut heating costs by 30% using temperature reductions during sleep and absence. And what it reveals will change how you understand comfort versus cost in ways the HVAC industry spent 40 years obscuring.